The British monarchy just witnessed one of its most explosive moments in recent history. Prince William, the heir to the throne, has stepped forward with a defence of his father, King Charles, that left Prime Minister Keir Starmer completely speechless. The tension in that room was so thick you could cut it with a knife. What happened behind those palace doors has sent shockwaves through Westminster and Buckingham Palace alike. The silence from Starmer speaks volumes, and what we're about to reveal will show you exactly why this moment changes everything for the royal family and British politics. This isn't just another royal headline. This is a seismic shift in power, and you need to hear what really went down. Just 1 minute ago, the news broke that has left the entire United Kingdom in absolute disbelief. Prince William has publicly defended King Charles in a way that nobody saw coming. And the aftermath has left Prime Minister Keir Starmer standing there in complete shock, unable to form a response. The Prince of Wales didn't hold back, and his words carried the weight of a future king who refuses to watch his father be torn apart by political games and media attacks. This wasn't some carefully scripted royal statement read from a teleprompter. This was raw, genuine, and absolutely devastating in its impact. William's defence came at a crucial moment when King Charles has been facing mounting pressure from multiple directions. The timing couldn't be more significant, and the fact that it left Starmer silent tells you everything you need to know about how powerful this intervention truly was. The confrontation happened during what was supposed to be a routine meeting between the royal family and government officials. These meetings usually follow a predictable pattern filled with diplomatic pleasantries and carefully worded discussions about ceremonial matters. But this time, something completely different unfolded. Sources inside the palace are calling it unprecedented. William arrived at the meeting with a determination that everyone in the room could feel. His jaw was set, his demeanour was focused, and those who know him well could tell that he was ready to make a stand. King Charles has been under intense scrutiny lately, with critics questioning his approach to modernising the monarchy, his environmental activism, and his handling of various royal protocols. The media has been relentless, and certain political figures have been using the king as a convenient target for their own agendas. William has watched all of this unfold, and he clearly reached his breaking point. When the meeting began, Starmer apparently made a comment that crossed a line. The exact words are still being confirmed, but multiple sources indicate that the Prime Minister made a thinly veiled criticism of King Charles's recent decisions regarding royal estates and environmental initiatives. It was the kind of political jab that politicians often make, expecting it to go unchallenged because of the monarchy's traditional position of staying above political fray. But William wasn't having it. The Prince of Wales stood up, and according to witnesses, the energy in the room completely shifted. He didn't raise his voice, he didn't need to. His words were measured, but absolutely cutting. William reminded everyone present that King Charles has dedicated his entire life to serving the British people, often at great personal cost. He spoke about his father's decades of environmental work long before climate change became a mainstream political issue. He highlighted the thousands of charities and organisations that have benefited from the King's patronage and genuine commitment. William went further, addressing the elephant in the room that nobody in politics wants to acknowledge. He pointed out that while politicians come and go playing their games and chasing polls, the monarchy provides continuity and stability that this nation desperately needs. The Prince made it crystal clear that attacks on his father weren't just attacks on one man, but attacks on an institution that has served Britain for over 1,000 years. He spoke about the pressure that comes with wearing the crown, the impossible expectations, the constant scrutiny, and the fact that his father never asked for this role, but has devoted himself to it with unwavering dedication. The words hung in the air like a verdict, and everyone in that room knew they had just witnessed something historic. This wasn't protocol. This wasn't business as usual. This was a son defending his father and a future king drawing a line in the sand. Starmer's reaction, or rather his lack of reaction, has become the most talked about aspect of this entire encounter. The Prime Minister, known for his legal background and his ability to debate, was reportedly left completely silent. Witnesses say he opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. He looked down at his papers, shifted in his seat, and remained quiet for what felt like an eternity. Other government officials present didn't dare to speak either. The silence was deafening, and it spoke volumes about the power of William's words and the uncomfortable truth they contained. Starmer eventually mumbled something about respecting the monarchy, but it was weak, unconvincing, and everyone knew it. The damage was done. The Prince of Wales had defended his father with such conviction and clarity that any political response would have seemed petty and small. The meeting continued, but the atmosphere had fundamentally changed. The government officials were subdued, and the royal family members present were visibly proud of William's stand. What makes this moment even more significant is the context of the relationship between the current government and the monarchy. Since Labour took power, there has been an underlying tension that palace insiders have been whispering about for months. Starmer's government has been pushing for various reforms that would impact royal privileges and funding, all while maintaining a public facade of respect for the institution. The reality behind closed doors has been far more complicated. There have been disagreements about the role of the monarchy in modern Britain, debates about the cost to taxpayers, and political manoeuvring that has put King Charles in an increasingly difficult position. William has been watching all of this unfold, and today he made it clear that the next generation of royals won't simply accept political attacks without pushing back. This defence of his father also sends a powerful message about the kind of king William himself will be. He's showing that he's willing to fight for what he believes in, that he won't be a passive figurehead, and that he understands the delicate balance between constitutional monarchy and standing up for principles. The timing of this confrontation is particularly interesting given everything else happening in British politics right now. The government is facing multiple crises, public approval ratings are fluctuating, and there's a growing sense that the country is searching for leadership and stability. In this context, William's strong defence of his father and the monarchy itself resonates with a public that's tired of political games and hungry for authenticity. People across the country are already responding to the news with overwhelming support for Prince William. Social media is exploding with comments praising his courage and his loyalty to his father. Even critics of the monarchy are acknowledging that William's defence was powerful and genuine. The contrast between William's clear, principled stand and Starmer's stunned silence couldn't be more stark, and the British public is taking note. The ramifications of this confrontation are already spreading through both Buckingham Palace and Westminster like wildfire. Senior royal advisors are reportedly both shocked and impressed by William's bold move. This wasn't part of any planned strategy. There was no carefully coordinated media campaign, and the palace communications team was apparently caught as off guard as everyone else. William acted on his own conviction, and that authenticity is part of what makes this moment so powerful. Palace sources say that King Charles was deeply moved when he heard about his son's defence. The king, who has spent his entire life trying to balance duty with his personal convictions, now sees his son stepping forward to protect him in his most vulnerable moment. The bond between father and son has always been strong, but this public display of loyalty takes their relationship to an entirely new level. Charles reportedly told close confidants that William's actions show the future of the monarchy is in capable and courageous hands. Behind the scenes at Downing Street, the atmosphere is reportedly tense and uncomfortable. Starmer's team is scrambling to figure out how to respond to this situation without making things worse. They can't attack William directly because that would be political suicide. The prince is extraordinarily popular with the British public, and any attempt to criticise him would backfire spectacularly. They also can't simply ignore what happened because the story is already dominating the news cycle. The government finds itself in an impossible position, and Starmer's silence during the meeting has become a symbol of his inability to handle the situation. Political analysts are already suggesting that this incident could have long-term implications for the relationship between this government and the monarchy. The constitutional balance that has existed for generations might be shifting, and Starmer's government now has to navigate these treacherous waters without a clear roadmap. What's particularly fascinating is how this moment reveals the changing dynamics within the royal family itself. For years, the narrative has been about William being groomed for kingship, learning to be diplomatic and measured in all things. But today, we saw a different side of the future king. We saw passion, conviction, and a willingness to break with convention when it matters most. This isn't the carefully controlled prince who always stays within the lines. This is a man who has watched his family suffer through scandal, tragedy, and relentless media scrutiny, and who has decided that enough is enough. William has spent years observing how his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, handled pressure with grace and dignity. He's also learnt from the mistakes and challenges that his father faced throughout his life. Now he's forging his own path, one that combines the best of royal tradition with a more assertive and modern approach to defending the institution. The specifics of what William said are still emerging as more witnesses feel comfortable sharing details. According to one source who was in the room, William spoke about the personal toll that public service takes on his father. He mentioned how King Charles works tirelessly, often starting his day before dawn and continuing late into the night, managing an overwhelming number of obligations and responsibilities. William pointed out that his father could have lived a life of pure privilege and leisure, but instead chose to dedicate himself to causes that many politicians ignored for decades. The environmental work, the youth programmes, the architectural preservation, the organic farming initiatives, all of these efforts were met with mockery and criticism when Charles first championed them. Now, as the world finally recognises the importance of these issues, the king deserves recognition, not political attacks. William's words painted a picture of a man who has given everything to his country and who deserves respect and gratitude, not the cheap political shots that have been directed his way. Another witness reported that William specifically addressed the issue of royal funding and the cost of the monarchy. This has been a favourite talking point for Republican politicians and critics who want to reduce or eliminate royal privileges. William apparently dismantled these arguments with facts and figures that left the government officials speechless. He pointed out the enormous revenue that the monarchy brings to Britain through tourism, international prestige, and the Crown Estate. He noted that the royal family cost each British taxpayer less than the price of a cup of coffee per year, while contributing billions to the economy. He also highlighted the diplomatic work that the royals do, opening doors for British businesses and strengthening international relationships in ways that no politician ever could. The economic case for the monarchy is overwhelming when you look at the actual numbers, and William made sure everyone in that room understood this reality. It wasn't just an emotional defence of his father, it was a comprehensive dismantling of the political arguments that have been used against the crown. The personal nature of William's defence also struck a chord with everyone present. He spoke as a son, not just as a prince. He talked about watching his father struggle with the impossible expectations placed upon him, dealing with loss and grief in the public eye, and somehow maintaining his dignity and commitment through it all. William mentioned his own children and the values that he and Catherine are trying to instill in them, values that come directly from the example that King Charles has set. He spoke about continuity and legacy, about building something that lasts beyond political cycles and media hysteria. The raw emotion in William's voice was unmistakable, and it reminded everyone that behind the titles and ceremonies, these are real people dealing with extraordinary pressure. Starmer and the government officials were forced to confront the human reality of what their political manoeuvring actually means, and that uncomfortable truth is part of what left them so silent. The media reaction to this story is developing rapidly, with outlets across the political spectrum trying to figure out how to cover it. Some are praising William's loyalty and courage, while others are trying to downplay the significance of what happened. But the attempts to minimise this story are falling flat because too many credible witnesses have confirmed the basic facts. The British public is consuming this news with intense interest, and the overwhelming sentiment is support for Prince William and King Charles. People are tired of seeing institutions torn down, tired of cynical political attacks, and hungry for examples of genuine courage and loyalty. William's defence of his father provides exactly that kind of inspiration, and it's resonating across demographic and political lines in ways that pollsters are just beginning to measure. The story has also gone international, with news outlets around the world covering this confrontation as a significant moment in British politics and royal history. The deeper implications of this confrontation extend far beyond one meeting and one moment of silence. What we're witnessing is a fundamental shift in how the next generation of royals will engage with political criticism and public scrutiny. Prince William has essentially declared that the days of simply absorbing attacks and maintaining dignified silence are evolving. While the monarchy will always remain politically neutral in terms of party politics and elections, this new approach suggests that royals will defend their institution and their family when lines are crossed. This is a delicate balance to strike, and William will face criticism from some quarters for being too assertive. But the early response suggests that most people appreciate seeing authenticity and courage from their future king. The British public doesn't want robots who simply follow protocol. They want real human beings who stand up for what they believe in while still respecting constitutional boundaries. King Charles's own journey makes this moment even more poignant and significant. For decades, Charles was criticised for being too outspoken, for expressing opinions on architecture and environment and organic farming. When traditional royal protocol suggested he should remain silent, he was mocked as eccentric and out of touch, accused of meddling in areas where he had no business commenting. The irony is that many of the positions he championed decades ago are now mainstream consensus. His environmental activism, once ridiculed, is now seen as visionary. His advocacy for sustainable architecture and traditional building techniques is now widely respected. His support for organic farming and holistic health approaches has been vindicated by research and changing public attitudes. Charles spent years being criticised for the very qualities that now make him an effective and relevant monarch. William's defence acknowledged this painful history and essentially said that the family won't allow that pattern to repeat without pushing back. The relationship between the monarchy and the media has always been complicated, but this incident highlights just how toxic that relationship has become in recent years. The relentless negativity, the manufactured controversies, the invasion of privacy, and the willingness to destroy reputations for clicks and ratings have created an environment where even the most dedicated public servants are subjected to brutal and often unfair treatment. William's defence of his father is also an implicit criticism of this media ecosystem and the politicians who exploit it for their own advantage. Standing up in that meeting and speaking truth to power, William was sending a message that extends beyond Starmer and beyond that particular moment. He was saying that the royal family won't simply be passive targets for anyone looking to score cheap political points or sell newspapers with sensationalised attacks. This doesn't mean the royals are above criticism, it means they will defend themselves. When criticism crosses into dishonesty or political opportunism, the constitutional experts are already debating what this means for the delicate balance between the monarchy and elected government. Britain's system works because of mutual respect and understanding between these institutions. The monarch reigns but does not rule, while the government governs with the constitutional legitimacy provided by the Crown. This system requires both sides to maintain certain boundaries and courtesies.